Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 478. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Our next guest is an accomplished consultant, acclaimed author, speaker, CEO, and founder of BHS consulting firm. She's empowering organizations to achieve unparalleled success through effective leadership and talent development. Welcome, Precious Monet.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Yeah, so BHS Consulting Firm is a firm that focuses on talent. A lot of organizations tend to focus on profit, focus on sales, but not realizing the backbone of their organization is their people. And if we don't invest time in our people, then it's hard to become profitable. So really filling in those skill gaps for talent development.
And that is a great topic. And when you talk about talent development, talk about the shift and the pivot we're seeing now in the workforce. And what advice would you give emerging businesses as they're trying to source for talent and compete with the bigger companies?
You know, that's a great question. When it came to the pandemic, that's when the shift happened. Before the pandemic, it was an employer's market, meaning, you can pick and choose when it comes to adding talent to your organization. When the pandemic hit, employers shifted and it became more of an employee market, meaning they had a little bit more negotiable. They were able to negotiate salary more, hours, kind of like demanding more things that they would want because employers were a little desperate in that time. So then now we're coming out of that and employers are starting to gain back control. But I think sometimes that when it comes to employees, you have to interview the employer. It goes both ways. You got to see if it's a good fit. Depending on the generation, we have a lot of people leaving organizations. And I always say people don't leave organizations, people leave their managers, the person who they work for. If they're not happy for who they work for, that kind of put a damper on their experience. So if they don't take time to invest in their skills, training, and development, sometimes you just might not have that right person in the right role, and giving them that opportunity to maybe shift roles, really investing that time from an employer standpoint, and then from an employee standpoint, really assessing what your passions are and turning it really into your purpose.
Tell us your backstory. How did you get into talent acquisition?
Funny, I fell into HR. I say I fell into it by accident. I was working for a trucking company and I was actually the administrative assistant. And my employer lost their HR generalist. And I was faced with, hey, I need you to figure it out. And this was back in 2002. I need you to figure it out or you don't have a job. That's when my HR journey began when I was in the corporate world. Worked for a trucking company, worked my way up to HR manager. Since then, I've kind of touched all areas of HR, education, just about every industry except for medical. I worked my way up throughout. I had leadership roles, director's roles when it comes to HR. And then what I found is I went and got my certification to become a life coach. I wanted to be different HR professional. I wanted to kind of think outside the box and not be your traditional HR. Getting my certification kind of helped me with that. I wanted to know why people do what they do and how they think. So that's helped me along my journey. But then for me as an employee, I felt like I wasn't valued. And, I worked with managers and leaders and presidents of organizations that were either unethical, not making the right decisions, didn't put their employees first. And just experiencing that on my own, I'm like, there needs to be a fix there. There's a gap. And we're overlooking high potential associates because we're not really investing our time and we're just thinking about the numbers. So that's why I birthed BHS Consulting Firm. I wanted to be an organization that helps employers understand the value of their employees, really understanding the skill gaps having that support that maybe it's just a little training that associate needs, and maybe they don't have the time to invest in their employees, or maybe they don't know how to train or what topics they need to train on in order to help build up those skills to be successful. It's really important when it comes to the associates, are we providing all the tools and resources to set our employees up for success? And most of the times as I'm going through and consulting, it's, oh, well, I didn't think about that. Or engagement or recognition. No, we don't have a recognition program, especially in this economy. What are you doing different than the other employer down the street that you're going to help retain your employees at your organization?
What is your zone of genius?
Being able to identify, like if someone says, hey, I want to move up, being able to identify some of the opportunities that you may have not thought about and really creating that roadmap on how to get there. I think for me, what's fulfilling is getting an associate that maybe, let's say they're a warehouse associate and they want to be a warehouse manager one day, really helping create that roadmap and then seeing that roadmap work. And then looking back and like, hey, this person started off as an associate and here they are now a district manager. I think for me, that's more fulfilling to get people to where they want to be happy in life, in their employment opportunities.
Who's your ideal client?
Ideal client, I get a lot of retail. So the retail industry tends to have the highest turnover, which is understandable. It's a lot of labor depending on the field. So that's my ideal client. I do work with mid-sized organizations that start to see the need to have HR. Most small businesses don't see the importance of having HR or policies in place. So I tend to target mid-sized companies, 100 or plus. So therefore that they either just starting out with, okay, they need some policies in place, they need some succession planning, building out, helping them figure out the organizational structure on, okay, what roles do we need? How do we need to set that up? And how do we get those key players in those roles?
Tell us your story around your day quit. What was that pivotal moment or that aha moment when you knew it was time for you to go full time?
For me, it was when I was working with a president and he wanted to fire someone that, and when it comes to Georgia, yes, it's an at-will state. I get that. But I always vowed to myself that I didn't want to work for an employer that did not do the right thing. And my back was against the wall when I'm told to terminate someone that clearly hasn't done anything in the wrong, and he just wanted to terminate her because he didn't like her. Not only was that unethical, was it, again, I know at will, meaning you can fire with no cause, but did we take a minute to think about this employee's, she had a family. We don't have any kind of performance management on this employee. There was no disciplinary action on this employee. And to really be okay with terminating someone for a cause of just not liking, that was kind of a deal breaker for me. That was unethical and it really bothered me.
So did you carry it out or did you exit?
I exit. I gave my resignation. And at that time, we worked it out where I didn't even have to work my 2 weeks because that's how strongly I felt about not carrying out something that I didn't feel aligned with their mission at the time and their values.
Talk about raising capital to start your own business.
It depends. Consulting is not hard. You don't need a lot of capital with consulting because you don't have overhead, depending if you have offices or not. I work out of a co-working space. I'm flexible depending on, where my client is. I tend to go into organizations, assess their business structure, and then come up with a plan on what areas of the opportunities they need to focus on and kind of monitor throughout and do some checks and balances. So for me, the capital is, you got to make sure that you're investing in knowledge. Knowledge is key. Sometimes as business owners, it's like, yes, you can start based on your experience. And yes, I have over 15 years of HR experience, but you want to make sure you're keeping up with the trends, you're keeping up with the regulations. So really investing in ongoing education is important, especially in the consulting industry. And then when it comes to investing in marketing is key to, bring brand awareness, depending if you want PR. A lot of people tend to think PR marketing is the same, and it's really not. So really investing in those things And then building out your team, and what does that look like? I have a couple of consultants that work with me as far as assigning out different assignments depending on what project and how big the project is or the organization is. I do work alongside a couple of HR consultants.
Precious, there are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or a business that's dominating that you admire and why.
I think for me, it's Nike. Nike has been around for so long, and I know that's not an industry that's comparison to consulting, but their strategy, if you really took a minute and looked at their strategy is very simple. Their theme is just do it. And I think that's what kind of captured me, because I'm someone that just gets things done. You see an opportunity, you just get it done. If you say you set a goal for yourself, you just get it done. And for them to be around so long and continue to adapt to the industry, I think to me that's a brand that I've always kind of make sure that I'm keeping up with, especially from a marketing standpoint.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and they've inspired you so much. Who is that person and what are you saying to that person?
It would actually be my parents, both my mom and dad. They have been such an inspiration to me. They've never held me back. I was always that young person that wanted to try any and everything. And even when I failed, like even from a business standpoint, I've had several businesses that were not successful. They're the type of parents that always taught me to dust myself off and pick myself back up again. And even when I did things that didn't make sense to them, they can respectfully disagree, but they still supported me. They've never been one, sometimes when you start a business, you're seeking support from family and friends, and oftentimes, you don't get that support, and you get more support from strangers. But the two people that I have always get support from are my parents. I'm grateful for them. When I have to make decisions, sometimes I just want to reach out and get their perspective. My father has been an entrepreneur since the age of 17. So growing up, I know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Of course, I didn't know what that meant at that time. I'm like, yeah, I want to be just like my father. My mom, she's been in education as far as in the education system. And for seeing them work so hard for what they want and creating a life that seems simple and peaceful has always been inspiring to me.
You use the word failure. We know there's a lot of risk in starting a business. Talk about your worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
My worst moment in business, let's say my event planning business. I had an event planning business, and obviously the worst moment is when the pandemic hit. Wasn't prepared for it, didn't know how to pivot. Yes, I could have easily transitioned into the virtual world, but for me, it wasn't the same. And because it wasn't the same, and I wanted that face-to-face interaction and not from a visual standpoint, it was tough for me to just decide, hey, do I continue? Do I wait it out and see how long we're going to be shut down? Or do I pick back up when things start to get better, when we're able to kind of get back out in the world? And for me, that was hard because so many things were going through my mind. I'm like, okay, is this a failure moment? Is this a sign I need to not do event planning? And I eventually made the decision, you know what? Let me go back to where I feel like I always go back to HR. No matter what business adventure I ended up doing, I always ended up back in HR. So for me, it was a moment like, okay, you know what? I need to go back into consulting. That's where my heart is. That's where my passion is. Yes, I love events. You get to enjoy people's memorable moments, but how does that impact someone long term? Yes, you'll have memories and you can always look back on, but being able to impact someone's career, their livelihood, I always default to.
Let's talk about mental wellness and entrepreneurship.
Great topic. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, you will burn yourself out because, starting up is just you. You're the marketer, you're the PR, you're the CEO, you're the assistant, you're the social media person, and you tend to easily burn yourself out because you're a one-man show. And I think that it's, for me, I'm not saying it was easy. Yes, you put in a lot of hours. Yes, you work harder than you work for an employer. But one thing I can say for sure how I balance it is I'm a firm believer of God. I have my quiet time, and my quiet time consists of me reading my Bible, sitting in silence, having my praise and worship. And it's gotten to the point where if I slip up one day, I physically do not feel well. So that's how I start my day every day. I've also implemented recently over the last couple of years is I call it transitional periods. Anytime I'm doing something, for example, like I'm doing this interview now, when I'm done, I'm just going to sit in silence, sit in my thoughts, clear my mind before I go on to the next task. I find that very helpful. As consultants, as life coach, you take in a lot. You take in a lot of energies, you take in a lot of people's personalities. And if you don't take that time for yourself to transition, you'll become mentally overwhelmed. And I think it's important to have those pause in your moments throughout the days to have a sense of peace. And then for me, again, just my quiet time and spending that time with God has really helped with my mental balance between trying to juggle it all and my mental health.
Precious, what problem exists in the world today that you would like to solve?
I would love to solve, this is going to sound funny, women's thought processes and attitudes. Reason why I say that, having businesses and working alongside other women, we tend to have this woman support woman mentality. And I actually have an organization as well called Be Her Support, that the purpose of that organization is to bring other women together to demonstrate what support looks like. Because we oftentimes say it, but how often do you actually see it demonstrated? Sometimes I feel like we're too competitive, and we don't realize there's room for us in this world. Everybody is different. Everybody's life experience is different. You can be a consultant, I can be a consultant doing the same thing, but we do things differently. We have different perspective. So if I can change the mindset of women, especially when it comes to the culture of African American women, I've experienced so many different challenges where people would rather work against you versus with you. But then they give you that facade of, yeah, I'm all about women supporting women, but your behavior doesn't line up with your words.
And if someone is interested in connecting around Be Her Support or even your HR services, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
I would say on my website, preciousmonet.com, you can find anything and everything that I do. So whether it comes from consulting, whether it comes from life coaching, whether it comes from interested in any of my books, being an author, best way is preciousmonet.com. Social medias, I am preciousmonet.com. I am Precious Monet.
Talk about authoring the books and the name of your books.
So my first book was Free Yourself from Yourself. That book talks about helping getting over fear and anxiety. That's something I used to struggle with. My second book is Without Passion, What's the Purpose? That one helps you really figure out what your purpose is and how you align with your purpose. And then my most recent book is Sisterhood Sabotage. That book is about really being able to transition from heal to whole after going through sabotage.
Advice you wish you had followed.
Putting myself first. I used to be an individual that would put everybody else's needs in front of mine. And then I look around for the support and no one's there besides my parents. Sometimes you want that additional support. But when I realize that happiness comes from within, I start to learn how to put myself first.
What's next for Precious Monet in terms of business?
It's a great question. I ask myself that every day. I'm taking over the world. If I can impact one organization at a time to really see the importance of valuing the employees that work for them, that's most important to me, and really expanding. Right now we're in Atlanta, just recently moved to Tennessee, so I'm going to definitely start tapping into that market. I do have some clients in Florida, so really just expanding throughout the U.S. will be my goal here for the next year.
What is the biggest takeaway from our conversation today? What do you want the audience to leave with?
Biggest takeaway is one, make sure you're doing what you are called to do or what you're passionate about. Because if you're doing what you're passionate about, it aligns with your purpose. And then it doesn't feel like work. You show up every day happy because you're doing something that you love. So my biggest takeaway is just assess. Sometimes we just need to take a moment back and like, is this something I really enjoy? How am I impacting the world? And do you feel fulfilled at the end of the day?
How did you reposition after a painful business moment?
Going to the Word, reading my Bible, sitting in that quiet time, waiting to hear from God on what He wants me to do. I think it's important for me, like when I run a business, that I spend that time with God and I'm running a faith-based business. And, some people are not comfortable with that. I think that's key for me.
As a emerging small business and you're in talent acquisition, talk about vetting your own employees for your own job, for your own business.
That's, talent is hard to find. And I think for me, I'm big on energy. You can tell me all day your qualifications, I can see it on your resume, but you're human. So I like to conduct interviews. Let's have a conversation. Let me get to learn you and who you are. I obviously go through the interviewing process and ask questions as far as making sure that the skills are there. But I think for me, it's important to get a sense of who that person really is and see how that person aligns with the vision and the goal.
Speaking of getting to know a person, what is something that we should know about you that we don't know about you?
I am someone that would go to bat for anybody that I see in need. I'm very passionate about helping others. A lot of people don't realize that I'm shy behind the scenes because when I'm in like my work mode, focus mode, I'm in a zone. I'm straightforward. I can be direct, but a lot of people don't realize like I'm shy. I'm quiet behind the scenes, which tends to throw people off.
Talk about your top two influencers and what lessons did they teach you?
Top two influencers. One, I would say Michelle Obama. She's a good influencer. I think for me, my biggest takeaway from her is she lives her truth. She shows up as herself, and I take pride in that. I feel like I show up as myself. So that's one. And then another person that's an influence for me. I don't mean to put it back on my parents, but really my parents, just them really investing. Now, they're not military parents, but it sure felt like it growing up. So they've instilled a lot of structure. I think that that's what benefits me now as an adult and running a business, being able to be structured and organized. That's kind of one of my strengths. They really inspire me to do more, give it my all, and continue to do my best.
If anything, what keeps you up at night?
I would say no, not right now. Again, I'm someone that if there's an opportunity, if there's a challenge, I pray about it, I meditate on it, and I let go. I used to be a warrior. Worry brings stress, stress brings health issues. So I've learned the hard way a while ago that I really just need to continue my faith, and everything happens for a reason.
What have you not done in life that you dream about often that you would like to do?
That's a great question. I don't have a particular thing. I'm someone that if I say I want to do something, it's going to get done. Prime example, I want to go to Hawaii. I planned that trip. I'll be going in September. I'm someone that just, hey, if a thought comes to mind that I want to do something, I'm going to figure out a way how to get it done.
You have many success stories in business and in life. Talk about a success story and only give as much detail as you can, whether it's from your Be Her support or in BHS Consultant. Tell us that success story.
I'm going to say, let's go with Be Her support. The biggest win for me is I had a woman be a part of the organization that did not have a lot of confidence, essentially. And when she joined the organization, it's like we became mentors, like mentors for other women. I like to check in. I'm someone that once I've connected with you, and I feel like we were aligned and we have the same things that in mind or values, I want to stay connected. So for this particular individual, I stayed connected. She had some challenges. I felt like it was an opportunity, it was an outlet for her when I would check in with her. And to see who she is today, she's someone that went to go get her certification. She was never motivated to become a coach. That's something she always wanted to do. And to see where she is today, she's a certified coach. She has her clients, and she kind of came out of that shyness, speaking from someone that tends to be shy. It's just exciting to look back on where she started, this quiet individual, never really interactive. Like if you meet her in person, yes, but if she gets in front of more than two people, she crawls up in a ball. And I don't even recognize who that person she was, because she has blossomed into this beautiful individual now that has no concerns or issues speaking in front of people and really thriving in her business.
Who is Precious Monet?
Precious Monet is someone that puts God first, her family next, and just wants to continue to live out what God truly has planned for her.
Talk to a younger you. What advice would you give to a younger Precious?
The advice I would give my younger self, probably going back to putting myself first and not being so worried about what people think. Growing up, I was very cautious of that. I worried about what people think, and I don't even recognize who that person is, because the person I am today, I can care less of what people think. As long as I'm doing something that makes me happy, obviously I'm being respectful to others, then that's all that matters to me, that I remain with my peace. Peace is important to me, and that's something that's hard to get. And once you get it or get a glimpse and taste of it, you don't want to go back. So I'm really big on things not disturbing my peace and removing myself from situations that would disturb my peace.
What inspires you to keep going, Precious?
I'll start with self, because I'm a self motivator, and then two, the inspiration of my parents. Just being able to know that anything I put my mind to, I'll always have their support. And looking back, it's just rewarding that yes, I might have tried a lot of things, and yes, some things may have not worked, but I don't regret it. It's everything's an experience. I don't look at it as failures, even though I use the word failure. It's really learning opportunities to assess what you want out of life. I feel like if you don't try enough things, how are you going to know what you like and what you don't like?
Let's take a snapshot of the last 30 days. What was your biggest win and how did you celebrate?
Biggest win was obtaining a client that I've actually been trying to obtain over the last 7 months. They saw the value, they just didn't want to commit. So within the last 30 days, they actually reached out to me, which caught me off guard. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, okay, you put so much effort into something 4 months straight and nothing was budging. And then I realized to myself, I'm like, okay, I prayed about it, but I didn't let go. And it's funny, the minute I let go, 30 days later, here I get a phone call like, hey, can you come in? We kind of want to revisit and move forward. I think for me, that was a big win, because sometimes you put so much effort into things, and because you don't see instant results, you might get a little discouraged. But again, just going back to letting it go, letting it God's hands. And if when things don't work out, it's not meant to work out. And if it does, look how I got that phone call, and here we are today, contract signed for 12 months.
Congratulations. And
Thank
how
you.
did you celebrate?
I celebrated by, how did I celebrate? You know what? I haven't even celebrated yet, to be honest. Like every day is a celebration. Every day I wake up and able to see another day, I'm just grateful. But normally, if I was to choose a celebration out to eat, I love to eat. I'm a foodie, so I'm sure I'll be celebrating by going out to eat with family.
I hear when you talk about being grateful, having an attitude of gratitude, and I want you to have what I call a thank fest. I want you to thank people, circumstances, and situations that you want that has impacted your life. Have at it.
I thank my parents for inspiration. I thank all the challenges, letdowns, sabotage. I'm grateful for those circumstances because I want to be the person I am today. I thank my accountability partners that helps me. I have two amazing, beautiful women that we check in on a regular basis as far as holding each other accountable. And that's very motivating to keep going as well.
Talk about your most memorable moment in life or in business.
I'm gonna say the day I decided to quit my job, that example I gave prior when the president wanted me to fire someone that shouldn't have been fired. I look at that as my most courageous moment because I up and left a job without a plan. And I'm someone that plans for everything. I plan for a plan. And that was probably one of the moments I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what was next. I just knew I couldn't continue. So I think that's my proudest moment because that gave me courage, that gave me more strength, and realized that, sometimes you don't have to have a plan. Sometimes it's okay to figure it out.
Precious, if you lost everything and you had to rebuild in 30 days, what industry and why?
If I lost everything in 30 days, the industry that I would choose, I would do the medical industry, only because that's something I've never done. I feel like that's the one industry I haven't tackled. And if I had to start over, I would challenge myself to be in an industry that I haven't touched.
Talk about naming your business. How did you come up with the name BHS Consultant?
It all ties down to building better human solutions, right? When it comes to, we're all human, and I wanted to be the platform to have a solution to create better humans as people, whether that's life coaching, whether that's talent development. That's how I came up. And it also was easy for the other organization, Be Her Support, is also BHS, an organization that essentially demonstrates how to be support for others.
That is brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about becoming Precious Monet. How did you become or are you becoming?
I became Precious Monet after all of part of my life. There was a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of challenges with health, and at early on, my faith wasn't that strong. So for me, having to go through those trials, that's why I'm grateful for my challenges in life because I feel like if I didn't have those challenges, I do question who would I be? I want to become the strong person I am today. I want to be the person that is very self-aware. I want to be the person that, doesn't care about what others think of me. So I'm grateful for those life experiences because it molded me to the person who I am today.
Precious, I want you to talk to someone in the audience. And when you talk about Be Her Support, she's joined many organizations. And it could be a she that is feeling like she was joining groups, and whether it's masterminds or coaching, and that support wasn't there, even in her own community. What advice would you give her?
I would start off and say that I was that person. The reason why Be Her Support was birthed is I didn't receive support, especially from people that look like me. So I wanted to create a platform that not talks about support, but demonstrates support. So I would tell that individual that one, you do have to find that tribe. And unfortunately, you have to go through so many different tribes and communities and until it clicks. But it's important that, before joining any community, any organization, any mastermind, that you do your research too. You do your interview on that organization. And if it's support, right, that's lacking, one, what does support look like for you? Because support looks different for everyone. Support might be just showing up to something that you're having as far as an event, or support is, hey, checking on me every now and then. So really, one, what does support look like for you? And assess the groups that you're interested in. Do they align with what support looks like for you? And you're not alone. You're not alone. We're all facing some kind of lack of support. Even from a business standpoint, you might hire someone to execute something and they didn't execute it. To me, that's a lack of support, because you invested in someone to execute what you thought they were an expert in. So it all depends. You got to figure out what support looks like to you and really assess, does that person align or that organization align with what support looks like?
Precious, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I'd like you to ask the question and answer it.
One question I would ask myself, you asked some great questions. I would ask myself, would you do it all over again when it comes to your businesses? The reason I ask myself that is to go through a couple different businesses and it didn't work out the way, knowing it didn't work out the way that I wanted to work out. Would I put myself through that again? And as I sit here and ask myself that, I would actually, because again, in life, if you don't try different things, how do you know what you really like? Yes, I liked event planning. Did I love it? I wouldn't say love. I had a construction business. Okay. Did I like going in and remodeling homes? I did, but did I love it? I think I was able to walk away with an additional skill. I was able to walk away with a different perspective, and it made me a well-rounded individual to have those things in my back pocket. So my answer to myself is yes, I would put myself through it all over again.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If it's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
Let's do it.
What is your favorite comfort food?
Pizza.
The last movie you saw?
Blacklist.
You relax doing what?
Meditating.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
CeCe Winans.
Your favorite dance song?
Pass, not quick enough.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Cheese sticks, pizza.
Your ideal car?
Cadillac or Range Rover.
Work out or hit the couch?
Hit the couch.
Precious Monet, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you. Feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Best way to reach me, well, one, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to even interview me. Had a great time. Thank you. And audience can reach me. Easiest way is my website, preciousmonet.com. That's precious, MONET.com. And then on social media, I am Precious Monet.
Thank you, Precious. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.